"Lamar?" a small voice called out over the phone. It sounded so timid and fragile that he almost didn't recognize her. It was obvious she'd been crying. He immediately fought back his rage. He desperately wanted to tear her world apart like she'd done his, but it would have been like clubbing a baby seal. With gritted teeth, he replied, "Yeah, I'm here." "I'm sorry," she answered. "I am too, Tess, but that doesn't change anything." "I know, but I just needed you to know." The awkward silence that followed was unnerving. Finally, a question was asked that opened Pandora's box. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why embarrass me like that? Do you hate me that much now?" Damn, I could ask you the same question, couldn't I? Why? Why in the hell would you throw away the past 5 years? Was he that incredible that it was worth destroying our marriage? There was no reply but her soft sobs. As for what I did, other than exposing you to your families, I didn't do anything. I didn't have anything to do with what was posted on the internet. He knew that wasn't exactly true. Still, plausible deniability was a wonderful thing. "As for your family and his," he sneered, fighting back his anger, "without any proof, your family would deny your shit stinks, let alone you'd ever act like a cheating woman. Besides, both of you wanted to be famous. I just helped that along." Tessa Albright Hopkins was a tall, striking blonde who was a professional model and actress. Although she was well known locally and even regionally, she still had national, if not international, dreams. She'd done many Dallas-Worth area commercials and statewide ones as well. She'd performed in an off-Broadway production that toured across the South and even had landed several small speaking roles in movies that had been shot on location there in Texas. She was now on her way to being a star, albeit an international adult star. Her extended weekend in San Antonio last month while shooting a series of commercials had provided several videos that had ended up on 2 Russian adult sites. Her co-star was an ex-NFL jock-turned-actor named Brad. He'd played with the Dallas Cowboys for several years, albeit on special teams. Still, with his good looks, athletic body, and abundant arrogance, he was the perfect leading man. Besides being a player, both actually and figuratively, Brad had a strong taste for the added thrill of public intimacy. Lamar supposed he should feel lucky, since that little kink had allowed his wife's indiscretions to be revealed. But Lamar wasn't feeling all that lucky at the moment. He'd found out about the website 2 weeks previously. He'd suspected something had happened the last time Tessa had worked with Brad, about 10 months prior, but didn't have any proof to back up his fears. Now, he did. His heart broke when he first saw the evidence and watched the woman he adored give herself to another. Slowly, the excruciating pain began to morph into a wave of sickening anger. The mixture threatened to overwhelm him, but he was able to contain it, barely, enough to do the things he needed. Once he saw the videos, he'd hired a private investigator to verify their authenticity and gather any additional information. It had only taken them about a week to confirm everything, plus interview some of those who had been on site during the shoot. He'd then contacted a divorce lawyer. Lamar Hopkins wasn't proud of how he'd confronted his cheating wife, but he wasn't ashamed either. He'd taken the information the investigator had given him, along with multiple edited scenes from the videos, and burned them onto 3 DVDs. The first he'd put away for safekeeping. The second was sent to Brad's wife and her family. The last DVD he'd used for a surprise showing for Tessa's family during their weekend gathering. While the family watched in horror, he'd left out the back, although not before leaving his wedding ring, divorce papers, and a short note telling Tessa not to come home. A star was born, he thought before chastising himself for his gallows humor. "Lamar?" "What?" he replied angrily. "Can we talk?" "I thought we were. I mean about us?" "There is no us, Tessa," he replied. "Please, baby, don't say that." "Please, baby," he seethed. "You can't be so stupid to think that having intimacy with that guy wouldn't destroy our marriage." "It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I got so wrapped up in everything that I lost sight of us. I'm so very sorry, baby. Me too. However, I'm not sure which mistake you're referring to, he replied, his pain and anger palpable even across the phone. From what was on the videos, you had intimacy with him on the Riverwalk in several isolated spots. You also had intimacy with him at SeaWorld. The one with an orca in the distant background was a very nice touch, by the way. Oh, and him pushing you against one of the walls of the Alamo at night will forever be burned into my memory. Remember the Alamo. I certainly will now. He could hear her begin to weep. So which mistake are we talking about, actually? He continued his attack. Was it settling for the San Antonio trifecta of public intimacy? Was it missing out on doing it on the 50-yard line at the Alamodome, or maybe not having intimacy on one of the rides at Six Flags Fiesta Texas Amusement Park? Or maybe, just maybe, it was that mistake you denied having made with the same son of a blip last winter when you did that commercial over at the Gaylord in Dallas? No, I told you nothing happened that... She started to reply. Liar, he barked out before regaining control. I don't believe you, and I doubt I ever will again. Tessa's muffled cry was cut short as she disconnected. That's what I thought, Lamar growled at his cell phone. He sat heavily in his recliner. He was exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. He could feel the blood pulsating in his ears, and he focused on the rhythm. He'd seen the signs. He'd known this was coming, but he hadn't been able to figure out a way to stop it. That was what was most frustrating. He was good at identifying problems, finding solutions or workarounds, and implementing them, though never with something this personal, something this close to home. It was certainly within his skill set, since he was a project manager. He led a team of developers within the IT department at American Airlines. Silently, he reflected on how his marriage and his life had fallen apart. The first domino to fall, at least to his awareness, was 10 months ago. Tessa had spent several days at the Gaylord Texan Resort in Grapevine, a northern suburb in the DFW metro. She'd been shooting some commercials for a regional jewelry chain. It was an ideal setting with its smaller indoor versions of the Riverwalk and Alamo. It had supposedly been the first time she'd worked with Brad, and he'd noticed things had been off as soon as she'd returned. Several days later, he'd heard hints that something had happened during the shoot. He'd confronted Tessa, but she'd denied everything. She'd been so devastated when he'd accused her that his heart had almost broken as well. Without proof, he'd been left to wallow in his suspicion and uncertainty. He realized his lingering doubts were poisoning their marriage, but he wasn't sure how to resolve it. Over the next few months, things slowly returned to a fragile normal. When she announced the San Antonio shoot with Brad, all the doubts and fears resurfaced. She'd tried to reassure him that it was nothing but a professional shoot. When his concerns didn't lessen, she'd turned defensive. Lamar had tried to hide his personal struggles, but his anger and frustration seeped through. Tessa recognized it, but didn't know how to alleviate it. She ended up ignoring it, hoping to avoid another confrontation. His team at work saw through it immediately as well. Surmising the problem might be marital, it had been the two female team members, Kelsey and Kama, who had approached him. Kelsey, the self-appointed spark plug of the team, stood a couple of inches shy of 5 feet and weighed maybe 90 pounds soaking wet. She had bright red frizzy hair that surrounded her cute pixie-like face and piercing green eyes. Even though she looked like a teenager, she was in her late 20s. Kama, on the other hand, was a tall Indian woman in her early 30s. She always had an air of grace surrounding her, no doubt from her upper caste upbringing. Her striking beauty was marred only by a severe overbite. Still, her dark hair and eyes and her very womanly physique made her quite attractive. So attractive that the remaining two members of the team, Raj and Marty, followed her around like lovesick puppies. Slowly, both women had worn him down, and he eventually shared his concerns. Within hours, his team had assembled around him. They were close as a team, working long hours and under impossible deadlines. As they stood surrounding him, Lamar had fought his gallows humor and the desire to say, "Oh, look, we're in the land of the little people," since everyone in his team, except for Kama, was height disadvantaged. Raj was a small, wiry Indian man in his early 20s. Even though everyone on Lamar's team was very intelligent, Raj was scary smart. Marty was also short, maybe a few inches above 5 feet, and had to weigh at least 200 pounds. With his round face, curly black hair, and wire-rimmed glasses, it was easy to see some resemblance to a hobbit. The fact he'd dressed up like Frodo Baggins a couple of years earlier for a Halloween party had sealed his nickname. Standing at a shade over 6 feet, Lamar towered over them. At that moment, however, he felt very, very small. Their reactions were fairly predictable. Kelsey thought he should go to San Antonio and confront Tessa. Kama suggested counseling. Raj offered to hack into her personal accounts, and Marty wanted to try and sell her to a Mexican whorehouse. Although they meant well, Lamar was hesitant to take relationship advice from them. Kama had the most relationship experience of the group by far, but she changed boyfriends as often as she changed outfits. Kelsey had an on-again, off-again boyfriend from the time Lamar had met her 3 years before. He'd lost count of how many times they'd broken up over that time. Lamar wasn't sure, but thought they were broken up at the time. Raj was a genuinely nice guy, but his computer brilliance had come at the price of his social skills, which were very lacking. Besides, he was so infatuated with Kama that whatever she suggested, he'd dutifully second. Marty was another thing altogether. Normally friendly and pleasant, he had a sinister side to him as well. Lamar believed he still lived in his parents' basement. He was also pretty sure whatever social graces Marty had were gleaned from social media. Lamar wasn't sure what to do. In the end, he decided against hiring an expensive investigator. The cost and exposure, if there was nothing happening, was too great a risk, even though Marty said he knew someone who could do it cheaply. Tessa had acted so hurt and angry the last time that Lamar felt he would seriously damage their marriage if he didn't give her the benefit of the doubt. With the situation unresolved, Lamar went back to the uneasy feeling his marriage was in trouble. His concerns after her trip were intensified by her reactions when she came home. It had been like their honeymoon, as Tessa had tried to kill him with intimacy that first week. When Lamar had questioned her about it, she had exploded. That next week was the polar opposite. Ice cold. It was at the end of the second week after Tessa's San Antonio trip that Kelsey and Marty approached him. Actually, Kelsey was dragging an obviously reluctant Marty. "Tell him, Frodo!" Kelsey demanded. Marty looked very uncomfortable as he shifted from one foot to the other. "Damn it, Marty! Tell him!" she spits. Lamar was half expecting her to stomp her foot as well. "Ah, well, damn it, Lamar. I'm sorry, but I sort of ran across this website and, well, it had some videos on it." Kelsey snorted and Marty glared at her. "You want to tell him?" he snapped. "Tell me what?" Lamar interjected. "All right," Marty huffed. "Last night I kind of stumbled on a few adult videos." "Marty, I really don't want to hear about your latest adult video viewing escapades." "Well, you might this time. The blonde in those videos looked a whole lot like your wife." "Tessa," he replied, the shock and doubt obvious on his face. Marty nodded. "I don't believe you." "It's true, Lamar," Kelsey interjected. "I saw them, and it's your wife and that Brad guy having intimacy in public places." "You saw it?" Lamar grimaced as his world began to slowly implode. "You were watching adult videos?" Marty couldn't hold back a snort as Kelsey's face turned as red as her hair. "That's not what I meant. Not that I haven't," she stammered. "Never mind that. Yes, I saw the videos, we all did, and they really are of Tessa." "Everyone's seen them?" Lamar growled. "Well, yeah," Marty replied. "They were on the internet." "And you're sure it was Tessa?" "I'm sorry, Lamar," Kelsey said gently, trying to defuse the situation. "But I'm sure." Lamar sighed. I guess I'll need those websites. I'll take a look tonight. Sorry, Lamar, Marty said softly and gave him the information. Lamar almost didn't look at the sites that night. If they showed what he'd feared, then his 4-year marriage would likely be over. When they'd first started dating, Tessa had sworn she'd been through with the wild and sometimes decadent aspects of the modeling and acting worlds. Evidence that she'd returned to that lifestyle couldn't be ignored. It would have to be acted upon. Eventually, he did watch them. Tessa was gone for a few days at an event, which allowed him to watch in peace. What he saw shattered any peace he thought he might have. It was the longest night of his life as he fought his demons. From the pain of being betrayed to the frustrated rage of watching his dreams burn in front of him, Lamar spent the night in bipolar hell. The next day, he began to pick up the emotional pieces. Piece by piece, he slowly regained the self-control he needed. He began the process as he contacted an investigator to verify and find any other proof. Other than that, he decided that he would wait for that report before he went any farther in ending his marriage. If it got to that point, he wasn't sure exactly what he would do. His team had other ideas. "Leave the cheating woman," Kelsey snorted. "I'll need to at least confront her, Kelsey," Lamar stated. "Why? What could she possibly say?" she retorted. "Maybe she was drugged," Kama interjected. "Oh, please," Marty laughed. "You saw the videos. She'd have to have been drugged for days. You can't tell me that someone on the set wouldn't have noticed." "Maybe she was being blackmailed," Raj offered. "Yeah, and maybe she was hit by the Martian ray," Marty snorted. "Martian ray?" both Kama and Raj asked simultaneously. "Never mind," Marty laughed. "Still, you're going to leave her, right, Lamar?" Kelsey added. "I suspect that's what will happen," Lamar said grimly. "I have an investigator gathering up the facts. I suspect my marriage is through, but I'll still need to confront her. If I do leave her, I'm not sure exactly how to go about doing it." "Just leave," Raj said matter-of-factly. "There must be," Marty added, smiling. "I don't know. 50 ways to leave your lover?" The entire group was filled with muffled chuckles or groans. "Just slip out the back, Jack," Raj stated. "Make a new plan, Stan," Marty quickly added. "All right," Lamar snorted. "You've made your point." Kelsey grinned sweetly, a sign she was about to say something definitely not sweet. "Just throw her under the bus, Gus." "I don't think," Lamar stated, failing to hide a small smile. That was part of the lyrics. "Maybe not," Kelsey replied with an innocent smile that quickly turned into an evil grin. "But it should have been." "Just put her in the trunk, Monk," Marty added. Kama was slowly shaking her head, but couldn't help but join in. "Just run for cover, lover." "Burn her at the stake, Jake," Kelsey squealed with glee. "Just sleep with her sister, mister," Marty sang. "Dear God, no," Lamar barked out, looking like he'd swallowed something rotten. "She has 2 sisters. Both are attractive, but no way. One is so stuck up she's definitely frigid, and the other is a Texas version of the church lady. Both are truly puckered. Not only is it a no, but a hell no." "Then do her mother, brother," Raj said, smiling like he'd solved some difficult programming code. "Ew!" both Kama and Kelsey squealed. "Then do her dad, Chad!" Marty almost shouted. "Enough!" Lamar said, fighting back a laugh. "Before someone overhears us and we all get sent to HR to be lectured about political correctness." With a few giggles and chuckles, the group settled into an awkward silence. "Thank you," Lamar said quietly. "Your support right now means more than you know. However, I'll have to figure out what to do and how to do it. I'm the one who will have to live with the consequences." Tessa took a deep breath as she adjusted her dress, opened the car door of her BMW, and crawled behind the wheel. As she left her parents' Highland Park mansion, she checked her GPS. What would normally be a leisurely 20-minute North Dallas drive was now being estimated at just under an hour. Friday night rush hour had both I-35 and the George Bush Turnpike gridlocked. A quick glance at her watch reminded her how late she was. She was currently 30 minutes late, and now she'd arrived just when he was going to leave. "Damn it, this isn't happening," she thought to herself. "Not now. Please, not tonight." She checked her GPS again for the quickest route. Her destination was simple, her home in Plano, or at least what had been her home until a week ago. Now, everything was in chaos. She fought back a sob. For the 100th time, she replayed last Friday evening. That was when her world fell apart, and it started with that horrible video. Actually, she knew that wasn't true. Her world had started to unravel almost 10 months earlier when she'd allowed Brad to cross boundaries that should have been reserved only for her husband. She hadn't slept with Brad, but their makeout and groping session in the Gaylord's Riverwalk ended up being a precursor to what had actually happened in San Antonio. She felt her cheeks flush with both shame and a remembered desire. She'd like to have said she didn't know why it happened, but she knew all too well why she'd fallen. There were reasons surrounding her incredibly stupid choices, but they all sounded like excuses. The truth wasn't flattering, and made her sound like what she knew she was: selfish. Still, her husband's way of exposing her had been cruel. He'd displayed all her extramarital atrocities for everyone to see. When the DVD first started playing, it looked like one of the movies they'd all agreed to see. Thankfully, none of the children were there. They were being entertained in another room by their own movie. Tessa snorted, realizing her husband had made the DVD intro so he could slip away unnoticed before all hell broke loose. He'd taken the remote so it would take a small amount of time before someone could stop the show. She knew this because he'd left the remote on the pile with his wedding ring and the divorce papers. In his wake, he'd left chaos. Everyone there recognized her and Brad instantly. Within 30 seconds, enough sound bites had been displayed that there was no doubt what was being seen. It was she and Brad having intimacy in several public places. She was relieved that all that could be seen was her body, and of course, that she was having intimacy. Thankfully, whoever had shot the video hadn't had access to their hotel suites. Having her family see this was very bad. But seeing her in a compromising situation with Brad and a young makeup artist, her family reacted as she'd expected. Her mother was shocked and just cried, while her father glared at her in disapproval. Her brother gave her an ugly look as he escorted his embarrassed girlfriend out of the room. Her overly pious sister and brother-in-law couldn't even look her in the eyes as they left. The other sister haughtily walked up to her and slapped her. As she and her husband walked out, Tessa couldn't help noticing the way that brother-in-law was leering at her. Needless to say, the party ended shortly thereafter. All that was left was to assess the damage and begin to clean up. The divorce papers were obvious, but it was the note Lamar had left that was the most telling clue of what he was thinking. The letter named the Russian websites and confirmed Lamar had contacted a private investigator. It also made plain that he was invoking the prenup that her father had insisted they have. The prenup was pretty standard fare, but did have an infidelity clause. The consequences of adultery were rather mild, only minor adjustments of the percentages each spouse received, but when invoked would clearly indicate infidelity as one of the causes for the divorce. In a no-fault state like Texas, that at least carried a little weight. Tessa couldn't help but shed a few additional tears as she thought about his letter. It was short and to the point, much like Lamar, but it was filled with so much pain and anger. It simply stated that she shouldn't come home without calling first. He'd changed the locks, and since their house had been his before the wedding and covered under the prenup, he wanted all of her things out before the end of the weekend. He went on to call her names, things Lamar would never have said to her before. She knew there was some truth in those labels, but knowing her husband now thought them about her hurt deeper than she'd ever imagined. Tessa pulled the Beamer onto the George Bush and began jumping lanes, trying to make up for the lost time. Unfortunately, the Friday night traffic wasn't going to allow any of that. She tried to stifle another small sob as she accepted the fact that she was going to be over an hour late before she got home. She would have to call Lamar and tell him. It's not like he'll be surprised, she scolded herself. I haven't ever been on time for anything during our marriage. She steadied herself as she dialed his cell. Hello? Lamar's harsh voice answered. Tessa froze. Her stomach seemed to turn in knots, and more tears began to softly run down her face. She'd hoped that his anger would have started to lessen by now. They'd talked so many times this past week, and each time she could sense he was dealing with the pain better. Unfortunately, his anger hadn't faded at all. Tessa? Hi, baby, she said, forcing herself to smile. It's me. Damn it, Tess, I told you not to call me that. Undaunted, she continued. I'm sorry, sweetheart, it's just so hard not to. I promise I'll try to do better, she said, knowing that was a lie. She knew that any chance she had to save her marriage relied on keeping him thinking of them as a couple. Why are you calling, Tess? Oh, Lamar, I'm caught in traffic, she said with a hint of pleading in her voice. I've been here for I don't know how long. She was only met with silence. Lamar? She asked gently. I told you, Tess, that if you wanted to talk to me, I'd be here until 7 tonight. I have another engagement that I need to be at by 8, and as you've said, traffic is really bad at this time of day. I would think that saving our marriage would be more important than some get-together, she snapped in frustration. If that was true, then why the hell wasn't it important enough for you to be here at the agreed-upon time? What was so important that you're going to be at least an hour late for this oh-so-important meeting? Delayed at the hairdresser? Couldn't you choose what to wear? Couldn't work it in with your other commitments? Please, Lamar, she said quietly. Please don't be cruel. I know I messed everything up. I love you. I know you don't believe that, but I do. I need to talk to you face to face. I need to see you. It's been a week. Baby, I need to tell you how sorry I am and to explain what happened. I want to show you that I believe we are worth fighting for. Tess, we've already had this discussion at least a dozen times already this week. But not face to face. It's always been by phone. I need to see you, Lamar, please. All right, I'll call and let them know I'll be late. But it'll only be a little late, maybe 30 minutes or so. 30 minutes? Is that all our marriage is worth to you? Are you kidding me? He barked. Do you really want me to answer that? I'll see you when you finally get here. As she heard him disconnect, a sense of despair fell over her. Her marriage wasn't just wounded, it was on life support. Her husband's greatest fear had become a reality. How could they hope to overcome that now? She prayed that he'd be able to do something almost unthinkable, trust her again. How do you convince someone to not be afraid when you both know damn well that they should be? Tessa sighed, thinking back. She'd joined the other desperate hopefuls when she'd begun modeling at 14. By 18, she was frequenting catwalks all across the South. It only lasted about 14 months. By that time, her body had fully developed, and she was borderline too busty for the fashion runway. When one door closed, another opened, and she became a lingerie and bikini model. To supplement her career, she branched out into acting as well. By the age of 22, she was tiring of the lifestyle. She still loved the work, but the sexual expectations, the casting couch propositions, and the hard partying were wearing thin. Then she'd met Lamar Hopkins. He didn't have model good looks, but he was in good shape and was boyishly handsome. His quick wit and humor made her laugh, and she was certain she could easily get lost in those dark brown eyes. They dated casually for the first several months, but soon Tessa realized Lamar was the one she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. He was her rock, her safe harbor from the chaos of her world. Whether it was simply resting in his arms watching a Texas sunset, or spending a night of passion entwining both their hearts and their bodies, Tessa knew this was what she desired. It was what her heart and soul cried out for. While Tessa was certain about them as a couple, Lamar was not. She knew he loved her, and his desire and lust for her were very evident. What concerned Lamar was her career. He had serious doubts and fears, not about her, but about the industry, and he had every right to. the world of fashion and acting played hell on even the strongest of marriages. It often blended intimacy, money, and power. The lines between reality and fantasy were frequently blurred, if not totally erased. From the nature of playing a part, to the expected nudity, to the physical combination of very attractive people, the sexual tension was extreme. Tessa couldn't remember the number of times she'd been propositioned, tempted, or even coerced by directors, agents, photographers, or producers. She'd even known of agents and agencies that encouraged those types of business connections. It was that fear that had caused Lamar to struggle with committing to their future together. It had taken her months to assure him that she was done with those extracurricular things that surrounded the actual modeling and acting. Now, after years of remaining faithful, navigating those pitfalls, she'd failed. She'd fallen. But it wasn't because of anything in her marriage. Their marriage had still been her foundation, a place on which to build her future. The passion between them had settled some after the first couple of years, but it still burned intensely. No, the reason she'd succumbed to temptation this time was simple: fear. Tessa was almost 29, far past her prime in the modeling world. In a little over a year, she'd need to decide if she wanted to continue modeling and become an over 30 or silver model. It was a decision she was avoiding, but the thought of leaving modeling was something she couldn't imagine. She'd seen others who'd tried to hold on for as long as they could. Their desperate attempts to extend their careers had saddened her, and the thought she'd soon be at that point terrified her. Another option would be for her to really pursue her acting. In order to do that, she'd need to move to LA or New York. Both were daunting, since she wasn't even a big fish in her current little pond. A third option was the one she had trouble even talking about: changing careers entirely. The few times she and her husband had discussed it, things had gotten very emotional, and harsh words had been exchanged. She realized that most of those words were hers, and she lashed out primarily out of fear. "Please, God," she silently begged as she drove, "don't let him ask me to give up my dream. I know that it's going to change, but please." She spent the rest of her drive racking her brain, trying to think of ways to save their marriage. When she finally pulled into the driveway, she was already emotionally exhausted. The anxiety and anticipation of her meeting had her adrenaline flowing, but she could feel an overwhelming weariness waiting in the background. Fixing her makeup, she stepped out of the car and strode up to the front door. His welcome was cool, at best. She stepped forward to hug him, but he stepped back and shook his head. "Lamar, I'm so sorry," she began. "I am too," he replied coldly. "Why don't we take this to the living room? Would you like something to drink?" "Something strong, please. I feel like I may need it." "Your usual gin and tonic?" he asked. "Yes, that would be fine. Thank you." She watched as he quickly fixed her drink and then led them to the living room. He was looking good, wearing a nice dress shirt, dress jeans, and cowboy boots. She hoped he recognized her attire that evening as well, since she'd tried to put on her best face. "You look good," she said softly. "So do you. But then you always do." "Thank you. You said you had a date tonight?" "No, I didn't say that. I'm meeting my team from work for German food and beer. We're meeting just up the road at the Bavarian Grill. I don't want to keep them waiting, so please say whatever it is you need to say." "How can you be so cold? It's like you don't care anymore." He snorted in obvious disgust. "I care," he said, the pain evident in his voice. "I wish the hell that I didn't, so this would be easier. When I found out, it almost killed me. It's lucky you weren't at home when I saw those videos. I cursed and yelled and cried. It was ugly. You tore out my heart by cheating on me. The simple fact is that I'm all cried out. Now I can look at what's left of our marriage and see it more clearly. I honestly don't see it surviving. I'd hoped to grow old with you, but that's not going to happen now." "No," Tessa pleaded. "I'm so sorry, baby. I love you. Please don't give up on us. We can get through this." "I don't see how." "We could do counseling. I know it would help." "Help? You've got to be joking. Help what? Help make you feel better?" 'Cause it sure as hell won't make me trust you. Tessa, your career takes you away from home frequently. Usually it's days or a week or two at a time, but sometimes longer, much longer. When you were on the road with that play, you were gone, off and on, for months. I was able to survive those times because I believed you were faithful, even though I knew you were surrounded by temptations. You knew my greatest fear would be that you'd forget me, forget us, and you did. Baby, I know I failed you, but I promise you. Stop. You've already made those promises and weren't able to keep them. I realize you're sorry, and I even believe you may still love me, but it's not enough. There's no amount of apologies or counseling that will change the fact that I will have doubts believing you're staying faithful when you're gone. I can't live like that, Tess. I'm sorry, but I just can't. Please, Lamar, please try, she cried. You can't, he started, then paused, regaining control of his emotions. Tess, do you really understand what you did? You didn't just fail, you threw me away. No, I just got wrapped up in that stupid fantasy world and ended up betraying you. I failed us. No, he shouted, stunning her. You threw me away. You didn't just cheat on me, Tess. Unless you suddenly turned into a huge exhibitionist, you disregarded our entire marriage. You not only gave yourself to another, but you did it publicly and multiple times. That's like taking disrespect and smothering it with humiliation for me. You didn't just forget about your loyal husband, you allowed another man to publicly humiliate him. Lamar, please, she pleaded. I didn't mean to do that to you. Look, Tess, you're beautiful. Hell, you're the most stunning woman I've ever met. I'm sure you'll have guys begging to marry you as soon as they hear you're free. Go find somebody who can deal with your career and the temptations it offers you. Someone who can deal with your inevitable slips, because that's just not me. I don't want someone else. I want you. You're the one I love. I know you doubt that, but I want the chance to make it up to you. How? He snorted. How could you even begin making something like this back up to me? I don't know, but I'll do anything. I know I betrayed you. If I could find a way to take it back, you know I would. I'm not so sure, Tessa. We both know you've been worried about coming to the end of this chapter of your career. I have no doubt it was a factor in what you did. It was. No one can understand how painful it is to be told you're too old, or you're not thin enough, or you're not pretty enough. You can't help but take it personally. There are so few careers out there where you're judged solely on your looks or image. Although everyone faces some of that, whether you can actually do the job or task is the main factor for most careers. While I'm sure that's true, you knew that before you ever started working in that meat market. You also weren't alone. Even before we were married, we were a team. I was your biggest cheerleader. You used to even call me your rock. But Tess, for the past year or so, you've refused to talk to me about it. I know it's scary and even overwhelming, but you've made sure that you're going through this without me. It feels like you've pitted our marriage against your career. Please, Lamar, she said with tears streaming down her face. Don't ask me to give up my dreams. I'm not, he snorted. I wouldn't ask you to do that. So I'm walking away from my dream of us, because without trust I'll eventually destroy any love we still have for one another. Please, Lamar, she whispered as she cried. A knock at the door interrupted them. Lamar looked over at her as she dried her eyes. I'll be right back, he said, getting up to go answer the door. When he opened it, he was taken aback. Hello, said the tiny redhead. I'm selling Girl Scout cookies. He snorted out a welcoming laugh. So where's your uniform? Ooh, that could be interesting, Kelsey said, grinning and waggling her eyebrows. Lamar slowly shook his head and groaned. Get in here before you embarrass both of us, he said, opening the door for her. She took a few steps into the house, but then froze. He turned and saw his future ex-wife glaring at his workmate. And what the hell is this? Tessa sneered, still wiping away her tears. I thought you said it wasn't a date. It's not. Kelsey is part of my team at work. You met her at the last Christmas party. He saw no recognition in Tessa's eyes. Shaking his head, he reintroduced them. "Tessa, this is Kelsey. She works with me. Kelsey, this is Tessa, and you already know who she is." "OMG," Kelsey squealed. "You're Tessa Albright. Can I have your autograph?" "Lamar, do you have a black marker?" the redhead said, looking over at him. He nodded cautiously, seeing a definite sparkle in her eyes. "Great! I'll go to the car and get my dildo so she can sign it." "What?" Tessa yelped. "Listen here, you tiny woman." "Shove it, Barbie cheating woman." "Enough!" Lamar barked, stunning both women. "Both of you, just stop. Kelsey, why are you here?" "I was sent to make sure you didn't back out tonight. I'm here to make sure you get some great German food and drink some great German beer." "All right," he sighed. "We're pretty much done here. We shouldn't keep the others waiting." "I doubt if they minded too much," Kelsey grinned. "Kama probably has Raj and Marty clogging, trying to impress her." The mental image brought a small smile to his face. Kelsey adjusted her purse to the other side. She glanced at Tessa before holding her hand out to Lamar. "Come on, honey," she cooed. "Let's go." Lamar rolled his eyes but still walked over to her. The little redhead wrapped her arm around his bicep. "Tess, we need to leave," Lamar said flatly. Seething but with tear-filled eyes, Tessa gathered her things and preceded the couple out the door. She stopped and turned to face her husband. "Don't give up on us, Lamar," she said softly. "We're not done yet." "You're wrong, Tess. We were done the first time you chose him over me. Our marriage is dead. All that's left is to bury it." Tessa stared at him as the tears now streamed down her cheeks. The sight of her pain almost caused him to falter and take her in his arms, but the small arm that curled around his bicep tightened. He gained strength from that small endearment. The blonde spun and quickly retreated to her Beamer. A few moments later, she was gone. The couple stood silently for a few moments before a gentle voice broke the spell. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Me too. This wasn't what I wanted either. I'd hoped to spend the rest of my life with her." They walked over to her car in silence. "You know, I could have just met y'all there," Lamar said wearily. "True," Kelsey giggled. "But where's the fun in that? Besides, when you called to let us know you'd be late, we knew one of us needed to come to rescue you." "And you lost the bet?" "Hell no," she snorted. "There wasn't any bet. I never gave them that chance." "Listen," he said as he looked back over at his car. "Maybe we should take both cars, just in case I need to leave early. I'm not sure I'll be the best company tonight." "Oh no," she smiled back up at him. "One car. That way, if you drink too much, it'll be easier to get you back home. But we can take your car if you want. Just give me the keys when we get there." "Bossy little thing, aren't you?" he chuckled. "Yep," she said, grinning back at him. They walked back over to his car with Kelsey still attached to his arm. He opened her door for her and then walked around and got on the driver's side. Soon they were headed up to the German restaurant. "You know, I'm sorry if I was out of line back there," Kelsey said softly. "Which time?" Lamar chuckled. "With Tessa," she laughed. "I mean, I really didn't mean to stir things up. Well, not too much." "Well, you weren't helping things." "Wasn't trying to," she snorted. "Look, Lamar, she treated you like shit, and then she bats her eyes and says she's sorry and acts like things are all better? Oh, hell no." Kelsey shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Finally, she turned to face him and softly touched his arm. "Lamar?" she said gently. "Yeah," he replied. "You must have figured it was Marty who had the guy watch your wife while she was in San Antonio, right?" He nodded. "Yeah, well, I was in on that too. I figured that as much as well." "You're not mad?" she asked. "No, but I do have a couple of questions." "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," she rushed. "The guy who filmed it wasn't supposed to sell the videos to some adult site. Marty said the guy wasn't actually an investigator and Marty hadn't paid him anything yet. Then, when the guy took those videos and they were in public, well, He made a little money selling them. Lamar, please believe me. You weren't supposed to be embarrassed like that. I'm so sorry. All right. I guess I can see how that happened. I can even understand Marty's involvement, but why yours? Even in the early evening, he could see a blush slowly creeping up her neck and cheeks. Slowly, she took a deep breath and continued. Because when you mentioned your fears, I knew it would be hard for you to do what it would take to find out the truth. When someone suspects their spouse is cheating on them, there's a real good chance that they are. When I found out she was, I wanted to protect you. You don't deserve that. You deserve someone who will love you enough to keep their damn legs together when tempted. Well, I agree. I deserve someone like that. Then again, everyone who enters into a monogamous marriage deserves that. But you haven't answered my question. Why? Kelsey's face froze momentarily. Then she fell back into her seat, staring wide-eyed out the front windshield. Because you're a friend and I care about you, she said weakly, never taking her eyes off the road ahead. And you care about me? Like a friend? He replied gently. The little redhead sat frozen as her emotions played out across her face. Finally, she dared to glance at the man sitting next to her. A small, knowing smile was plastered on his handsome face. Jerk! She huffed, then turned and looked out her side window. Lamar could barely make out the glistening in her eye. I'm not stupid, you know, she almost whispered. I know I could never compete with her. She's a model, and she's so damn beautiful. You know, he interrupted, it makes perfect sense why Tessa would cheat on me. Just look at that guy, Brad. GQ looks and athletic body, an ex-Dallas cowboy and famous, at least in this part of the country. No way in hell I could ever compete against that. No, she can't be blamed for falling for someone like him. What the hell are you talking about? Kelsey shouted. Not to blame. Holy shit, are you serious? It shouldn't matter if he was a Greek god. The fiery young woman froze, staring at his smile. Listen, Kelsey, he said softly. I understand what you were trying to say, but you're wrong. Sure, Tessa is beautiful, but that's only on the outside. That's just a package wrapper. It's flashy and colorful and draws attention. Lord knows it drew mine. But that's all it is, a wrapper. What's most important is what's inside. What all this has shown me is that what's inside my soon-to-be ex-wife isn't that special. I don't know what is an act and what's real now. I know she's afraid her modeling career as she knows it is coming to an end, but she won't deal with it. She won't even talk about it and has no intention of giving it up. As long as it's me versus her career and the career keeps winning, our marriage was doomed. I'm sorry, he continued. That wasn't where I meant for this to go. It's okay, she replied gently. No, what I wanted to say was that looks are important but nowhere near what's inside. And Kelsey, you're more than attractive enough for any man. Kelsey peered at him until he had to turn away and focus on the road. She continued to stare silently at him for several seconds as he refused to make eye contact with her and shifted uncomfortably in the driver's seat. So, she finally cooed softly, you like my wrapper? He snorted. Yeah, you're very attractive for an Irish elf. Shut up, you jerk, she laughed. Besides, I've heard some really explosive things come in small packages. You have no idea, but you might, if you play your cards right. Ah, Kelsey, Lamar stammered. Relax. I know it'll be a while before you're ready, she said with a smile. But when you are, I hope you'll think of me first. Until then, she said, waggling her eyebrows, causing them both to laugh. You know you actually did it, don't you? She continued. What? He asked. You found your own way to leave your lover. You made her a star, Lamar, and got free. They both chuckled as she gently reached over and brushed a hair off his face. You know it's really going to be okay, don't you? She whispered. He nodded. Yeah, in time it will be. He realized that the days ahead would be dark, but he also knew he wasn't alone. Not only did he have friends and family, but he also had someone special. Whether that would grow into something or not, he didn't know, but there was hope. A new chapter had begun. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.